Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Friday. I hope you guys are ready for the weekend. There's my coffee. November 3rd. Boys are coming in tonight. I'm going to hunt all weekend. We've been seeing bucks, but nothing that we want. Nothing mature. All young stuff. So I thought I'd talk today about being disappointed, depressed, and understanding your limits. So on that, stay tuned. So you're probably wondering now where Eric's headed. What direction is he going to talk about today? Well, Randy had left in the comments. Sorry, I got this chest cold. Randy had left in the comment that how if you're unable to fix a machine, you end up feeling depressed. And that tells me that you're looking more at your failures than the good things that are going on. See, that's knowing your limitations. See, the first thing I know is, sorry to you non-religious folks, I'm not God. I can't part the sea. I can't bring back the dead. Heck, I can hardly make my own coffee in the morning. But I know my limitations, and have I exceeded my limitations and got myself into trouble? Oh, yeah. When you get to be my age, you've stressed your limitations to see if you can reach out. That's different than learning. Learning gives you a broader range and better limitations, per se. Because when you're born, you're limited to whatever your parents kind of help you with, right? You can cry, you can wiggle, you can gaga, whatever. But those are the limitations of a baby, right? How does that relate to us in the shop? It does. It bothers me, Randy, if we get a machine in here and for whatever reason we're unable to fix it. And the biggest reason is cost. It's not worth fixing. Or the owner isn't willing to put that much money into it, which is totally okay too. But I can only remember of 2 machines that ever came through this shop. 3. Sorry, it's probably more than that, but 3 that I can remember. And 2 were Massimos, and 1 was Massimo side by side, and 1 was a Kawasaki 4-wheeler. And this goes back to knowing your limitations. See, Claude is a great mechanic. He's been doing it for years. But where we have problems in the shop is where it's not knowing his limitations, per se, if you're a shop owner. Or if you're the one that knowing your own limitations. If you're going to work on side-by-sides, 4-wheelers, snowmobiles and stuff like that, it takes a different skill set. Okay? I know an engine's an engine, right? Not so much. It takes a different skill set. And it also comes with specialty tools for that skill set. And I've always been a firm believer. If you're going to work on 4-wheelers, work on 4-wheelers. If you're going to work on, riding lawnmowers and push mowers and part of the lawn and garden, stay with that. But the limitations of that is, in our area, you can't do just that and survive anymore. Because, one, people are buying their own parts off eBay from China at a really cheap price. B, they've decided that they don't even want to deal with it or hassle with it. And they've gone and bought a brand new one. Or C, you brought it to the shop and it's not worth fixing. So in our area, if we did just lawn and garden, that will include chainsaw in there in the lawn and garden. But if we just did lawn and garden, I'm telling you, in our area, there's not enough work year-round to keep you going. So the tendency is to branch out, because in the springtime, you have this rush, right? If you're doing lawn and garden. And if you're smart and you listen to my videos, you've kind of got half of those customers to come in the fall, even if you do it at a slightly reduced rate, and explain why it's better in the fall, because they don't have competition. They'll be the first one out there mowing in the spring, etc., etc. But then there's this lull. If you're doing your job, a lot of times you'll only see that customer once a year, right? Now, breakdowns are breakdowns, but when I say if you're doing your job, see, now when we have a mower come in here for a spring service, it still gets checked head to toe. And if it needs blades, belts, spindles, what have you, then I'm on the phone talking to the customer, telling them, you probably can get another month out of them, but you're going to be back in here and you're going to be broke down, and I'm not sure how much time I will have to get yours back out. And most of the time, our customers, the 80-20 rule, my customers just say, if it needs it, fix it, Eric. Here's my problem. You provide a solution. We're all happy. So you have that lull. And then there's even a bigger lull for us after the fall services are done. Because we don't get a big rush of snowblowers. And snowblowers, we can knock out a snowblower in half an hour. Have it completely through the shop. And that is, service, greased, everything. So snowblowers for us aren't big money makers. So as a shop owner, a boss, you also have to know the limitations of your crew. And you should never put your crew in a situation of trying to do more than what their limitations are. See, a good boss knows his strengths and his weaknesses. And he also knows his strengths and weaknesses in his employees or the workers that work for him. I could probably hire on, because this is a young man's game, all right? I will be totally honest with you. A lot of kids are growing up with four-wheelers, three-wheelers, side-by-sides, and snowmobiles, and they're doing just like we did when we were kids. And that was, we would find a POS, a piece of crap, I'm saying it nicely, that you have to work on in order to get to ride it. And we used to laugh, you get to ride it one day and then you work on it the rest of the week trying to get it so you can ride on it another day, right? But I'm seeing a lot of kids out there that are savvy and they can do a complete engine takedown and rebuild quickly. And they know how to easily change belts on snowmobiles and four-wheelers and side-by-sides. And they know the codes, and they know. Whereas Claude is 71, and he worked on his own four-wheeler, a three-wheeler, when he had them, but everything has to be precise when it comes to that. So, as a shop, our limitations say we should not accept side-by-sides, four-wheelers, snowmobiles, and that. And sometimes I step outside that, and I take on a job because it's one of our regular customers, and they'd like to have their four-wheeler serviced, and that's fine, doing a service. But like Claude says, if it comes in and it's got a running issue, there's so many things that can be wrong in that four-wheeler that he doesn't know about because he hasn't been around them for a period of time. And his limitations tell him, I can do a service on it, Eric, per se, but when it comes to the other stuff, I'm shooting in the dark. And we may have a fourth machine that we have here now, which is a Polaris Sportsman 500. And for some reason, when it's running, there's fuel coming out of the overflow. So it's getting too much fuel in the carburetor. So what we ended up doing was we went out and we bought a new carburetor. Because somebody had tried adjusting something in the other one and it started to strip bolts and stuff on it. But we went out and I bought a new carburetor for it. I mean, it was on eBay for like 60 or 70 bucks. And we put it back on, that brand new carburetor, and got everything all bolted up. And when we first started it, it worked fine. And drove it around, etc., etc. And we sat at home with the customer. And that day they called back and said they're having the same problem. So I said, bring it back. So they brought it back. Sure enough, there's fuel coming out of that overflow. So I told Claude, I said, look, you replaced the carburetor. What else could it be? And he's like, well, all I can think of is that either the fuel pump is over pumping or the diaphragm may have a hole in it and it's allowing air in it and it's pushing up the needle and allowing it to flood. So we put a new fuel pump on it. This is where he calls it parts replacing instead of being a mechanic. That's why he doesn't like to work on this stuff, because he just soon get the part and change it than it is to try to adjust it and get into something that he knows his limitations are. But we're still having the same problem. New fuel pump, new carburetor, same issue. And I know that the customer is going to want it tonight for the weekend to go deer hunting with it. And the minute it starts running, it starts shooting gas out the overflow. I had Claude tear down the new carburetor. Everything looked good. Needle, seat, everything. Brand new. Still have the same problem. So you do need to know your limitations. And that affects us in all walks of our lives. It's not just simply our business or managing people. It's knowing the limitations of yourself, because you're the only one you can control. Now, what I'm not telling you is that limitations will never push out, because it will. If you have the ability and you have the will to learn new things, then you're limitations can be expanded simply by, going to school on snowmobiles, four-wheelers, side-by-sides, or going to classes or doing tear downs and understanding how everything works, then the job that Claude's trying to do right now would be probably simple. It's probably something simple in the system that somebody younger would know exactly what the issue is, per se, where Claude knows his limitations and he's not willing to go that at his age. He doesn't care about trying to learn four-wheelers and that stuff. He's content doing the lawn and garden and working on farm tractors. But getting back to what Randy had said, that you need to focus on the good things going on in your life and not always what you deem as failures. Because if you're only focused on them, which is easy because those are the ones that keep flashing up at you. You didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, or you weren't able to please that customer, and I'll tell you, it can bring you down. It can, if you allow it just to keep cycling in your head, you start to think that maybe you're not good at anything, where that's totally untrue. What you need to understand, Randy, is that you're not God either, and you can't make everything right again. And you're going to have that machine or what have you come through your shop that you're not going to be able to fix for whatever reason. And you just need to kind of put it away, be honest with the customer of why you can't fix it and table it and move on and not keep focusing on that. Where you could have 20 good things going on in your life, but all you're focused on is that one thing over here that is telling you that you're a failure. And see, my feeling on being a failure is when you quit trying. And as long as you're trying, you're in the game. When it comes to equipment, you know your limitations, and that's where you got to stop. And that's being honest with you and your customer. And with the one Kawasaki that we had in here, Randy, we ended up telling them that this is beyond our limitations. It could be something simple that we're missing. It could get very expensive if we start parts replacing everything. And explain to them that the local Polaris dealership had a couple really good young mechanics in there that might be able to fix the issue for a little bit of nothing compared to what we might run into if we just keep. And it was an older machine, so. And by doing that, you're telling your customer that you've done your best, okay? And your best isn't good enough, but that's okay. And then you've also given that customer another option to look at, and that is, okay, I understand that, you guys don't normally work on four-wheelers. And now you've given a recommendation to a shop that has got some good young mechanics that know what to do. And hopefully by doing that, they get it fixed and the customer's happy. The customer isn't going to go around thinking, of how you screwed them because you couldn't get it fixed. They're going to think how great it was that you gave them a solution to the problem. And that's just getting their unit fixed, whether it be you or somebody else. But again, if all you do is focus on the things that you feel that you failed at, that makes it really hard. I want you to, Randy, just kind of change your mindset and just shelve that, all right? And look at all the positives that are going on. If you have 10 machines you fixed and the customers are happy and you've got one that you weren't able to fix, then to me, I still look at you as being successful because you got 10 and you got one that you couldn't. But we humans tend to do that. We focus on the negatives instead of the positives. And it's all how you look at things. You know, it's kind of like the glass half full, half empty type thing. But I also know people that have like chronic depression, OCD, and so you just have to be careful that where you are on that line, all right? You're not a bad person if you have chronic depression. I mean, you're your own worst enemy because you're beating yourself up all the time. And you are a super good person, but you just don't see it. And there's medications out there for that, by the way. Same thing with OCD. It just depends on how you handle it. You have to know your limitations. And you have to change your focus on looking at the good things that are going on in life versus the few that aren't so good. Now, if you have one that doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, if you can learn from that, like don't take four-wheelers in that are having running issues, then you actually turn a negative into a positive. You see what I'm saying? But I'm going to start wrapping this up a little bit here. And I always try to give examples. You know, it would be like me deciding I was going to start pole vaulting. I've never done it before. I'm a little out of shape. You know, I'm not heavy per se, but and I don't have a lot of upper body strength. So wouldn't that be my kind of limitations of maybe pole vaulting isn't the right thing to do? You're going to see this in probably every day in your life of things that you look at and knowing what your limitations are and stopping there. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go and spend all summer long training and building your upper body strength and learning how to use the pole and et cetera, and getting into shape, that you can't do it. Because I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're willing to learn, then you're pushing out your limitations to include pole vaulting. Now, if you have no inclination to want to pole vault, you're not going to want to learn or spend the time that you need to get yourself in shape, especially your upper body strength. And that's what you're going to see every day of your life. You're going to see things out there that are possibilities if you want to learn and put in the time needed to succeed at it. Then you're opening up a new door. But if you're not willing to spend the time learning, then that door is shut. And that's where you need to know that my limitations stop at, I'll watch it on TV, but you sure in heck ain't going to get me to try to run down this thing and try to pole vault over top of a thing that's 20 foot in the air. I mean, that would be just asinine, wouldn't it? That would be deemed a failure from the get-go. Look at me. Do I look like a pole vaulter? Well, if I think that I can pole vault, then I must think that I'm God and I can part the seas too, because I can't do either. And I know that. So you're not going to catch me out there pole vaulting. So on that note, you guys have a great weekend and a great Friday. And just the main thing with this video is knowing your limitations. And if you know your limitations, and you know that I can expand my limitations by expanding in areas that I want to learn new things, that's great. But if you don't know what your limitations are and you keep exceeding them, and for whatever reason, well, I know why you're failing at it, because you haven't been willing to put the time or effort in it to learn how to succeed doing it. See, you aren't just given, all this intelligence. It's learned from an infant until your Claude's age of 71 and beyond. And I can tell you right now, with being 61, when I was younger, I thought I knew everything. And now that I'm older, I know nothing. If that kind of makes sense to you. Because there's so much out there to learn that I don't know, that I want to learn. And I'm just kind of checking off the boxes as I go of the things that I do want to learn. And one of the things that I wanted to learn was how to use this equipment, how to provide a medium for me to become friends with more people and be part of a bigger group that are all based on helping others. I wanted to learn how to do that. And with wanting to learn, I'm still probably in the infant stage. I've watched some videos and there's like clips, a couple seconds, and it just keeps, instead of just someone just sitting there talking to you. It's like somebody randomly took 500 clips to make a 10-minute video. And I know my editing could be so much better if I learn new things, which I'm trying to. But the only time I would deem this a failure with doing this is my unwillingness to learn more and stop trying. So on that note, if you guys, could share the videos with your friends, family, be greatly appreciated. People that you know it might help. And just have a great Friday. And know your limitations. Don't drink too much on the ball games. All right.